Sarah burst through the doors of my office building. Security tried to stop her. She pushed past them. Michael. My secretary looked up, startled. Sarah stormed toward my office, divorce papers clutched in her fists. You can't do this to me. I didn't look up from my desk. Hello, Sarah. The house is sold. The accounts are empty. You left me with nothing. I left you with exactly what you earned. She slammed the papers down. Her mascara was running. Her voice cracked. Over dinner, Michael. You destroyed our family over dinner. I finally looked at her. This woman who told me I wasn't part of her family. Who'd spent months treating me like a stranger. Who'd filed for divorce demanding $600,000. You destroyed our family the night you looked at me and said you only cook for your kids. I just made it official. Security was at my door now. Sir, should we? It's fine. I stood up. Mrs. Patterson was just leaving. Sarah stared at me. The confident woman who'd filed those papers 6 months ago was gone. This can't be happening. It already happened. She turned and walked out. Her shoulders shaking. 30 days to vacate. $66,600 total settlement. Game over. But before we continue, please subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment where you are watching from. This is the story of how one cold comment cost a woman everything, and how sometimes the quietest revenge is the most devastating. 18 months ago, I was Michael Patterson, a 47-year-old construction company owner living in Denver, Colorado. My company, Rocky Mountain Construction, generated about $1.8 million in annual revenue. I employed 12 full-time workers and had built a solid reputation over 14 years specializing in custom homes and commercial renovations. I was married to Sarah Patterson, a 39-year-old part-time marketing consultant who works sporadically from home while primarily managing our household and her 2 children from her previous marriage, Emma, 14, and Jake, 12. I'd been their stepfather for 8 years, since Sarah and I married when the kids were 6 and 4. On paper, our life looked stable. Nice 4-bedroom house in Highlands Ranch that I'd purchased and renovated myself. 2 cars, a truck for my work and an SUV for Sarah and the kids. Combined household income of around $240,000 when Sarah was working consistently, though her income was unpredictable and often consisted of short-term projects that might bring in $3,000 one month and nothing the next 3. What made our financial situation work was that I covered all the major expenses: mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, the kids' activities, family vacations. Sarah's income went toward her personal expenses and extras for the children. It was an arrangement that had worked for years, though I was essentially supporting a family of 4 on my income alone. The first sign that something fundamental had shifted in our relationship came in March of last year. I'd had a particularly brutal week. A commercial project had run into permitting issues that required extensive redesign. One of my key subcontractors had been injured and couldn't work for 2 months, and I was putting in 14-hour days trying to keep multiple projects on schedule. I came home exhausted on a Friday evening to find Sarah in the kitchen preparing dinner for Emma and Jake. The smell was incredible. She was making her famous lasagna, garlic bread, and a full salad. The kids were setting the table, talking excitedly about their day. "That smells amazing," I said, dropping my keys and heading toward the kitchen. "I'm starving." Sarah looked up from where she was slicing bread and gave me a look I'd never seen before, cold, almost hostile. "This is for the kids and me," she said matter-of-factly. "There's sandwich stuff in the fridge if you want something." I stopped, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean I cooked for my family. You can figure out your own dinner." Emma and Jake exchanged uncomfortable glances. This wasn't normal behavior, even when Sarah was stressed or we'd had disagreements. "Sarah, we're all family here. What's going on?" She put down the knife and looked at me with an expression of pure dismissal. "I don't cook for you, Michael. I only cook for my kids. You're a grown man, figure it out." The silence in the kitchen was deafening. Emma looked mortified. Jake stared at his plate. I stood there processing what had just happened, trying to understand how the woman I'd been married to for 8 years, the woman whose mortgage I paid, whose children I'd helped raise, could speak to me like I was an unwelcome stranger in my own home. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll grab something later." I went upstairs, showered, and tried to make sense of what had just occurred. Sarah had been stressed lately, her consulting work had been slow, she'd been complaining about feeling unappreciated, she'd been making comments about wanting more independence. But this felt like something different. This felt like contempt. When I came back downstairs, Sarah and the kids were finishing their dinner. She didn't look at me. She didn't offer an explanation. She didn't apologize. She acted like nothing had happened. That night, lying in bed next to a woman who had turned her back to me without a word, I realized that something fundamental had changed in our marriage. The comment about cooking wasn't about food, it was about respect, partnership, and where I fit in Sarah's vision of her family. Over the next few weeks, the pattern became clear. Sarah had mentally separated me from what she considered her real family. She would make elaborate meals for herself and the kids while leaving me to fend for myself. She would plan activities and outings that included the three of them but somehow didn't include me. She would have long conversations with Emma and Jake about their future plans, college preparations, and family goals as if I weren't part of the equation. When I tried to address this behavior, Sarah would dismiss my concerns or turn them back on me. "You're always working anyway," she'd say. "You're never here for family dinners, so why would I cook for someone who's not around? I'm working to support this family, Sarah. And I'm home by 7 most nights. Supporting this family? This is my family, Michael. You married into it." That phrase, "you married into it," revealed everything I needed to know about how Sarah viewed our relationship. After 8 years of marriage, I wasn't her partner or the kid's stepfather. I was a financial contributor who happened to live in the same house. But what Sarah didn't realize was that her dismissive treatment was teaching me something valuable about our relationship dynamics. If she didn't see me as part of her family, then I needed to start thinking about my future as a single person. If she could coolly inform me that she didn't consider me worth cooking for, then she had already checked out of our marriage emotionally. I began making some quiet preparations, though I didn't call them that at the time. I told myself I was just being practical, organizing my finances and business interests the way any responsible adult should. I met with my accountant, Gerald Morrison, to review my business finances and personal assets. Gerald had handled my books for 10 years and knew my situation well. "Michael, can I ask why you want a complete asset review right now?" Gerald asked during our meeting in April. "Just want to understand where everything stands," I replied. "The construction market's been volatile, and I want to make sure I'm protected if the economy shifts." That wasn't entirely dishonest. The construction market was volatile, and economic protection was important. I just wasn't mentioning that I was also concerned about personal financial protection. Gerald walked me through everything. My business was solid, good cash flow, minimal debt, strong customer base. Personally, I owned the house outright after accelerating payments over the years. My retirement accounts were healthy. My life insurance policies were current. Most importantly, Colorado was an equitable distribution state, meaning assets acquired during marriage would be divided fairly but not necessarily equally in a divorce, and the house, which was my major asset, had been purchased with money I'd earned through my business. I also made an appointment with Patricia Reeves, an attorney who specialized in both business law and family law. I told her I wanted to review my business structure and personal estate planning. "Are you anticipating any major life changes, Michael?" Patricia asked. "Just want to make sure everything's properly organized," I said. "I've been so focused on building the business that I haven't paid enough attention to the legal structures protecting it." Patricia reviewed my business incorporation, my personal assets, and my marriage situation. Her advice was straightforward: keep detailed financial records, maintain clear separation between business and personal expenses, and document any major financial decisions. "If you're concerned about protecting your business assets," she said, "the key is demonstrating that the business's success comes from your professional skills and efforts, not from marital contributions. Keep records of your work hours, your client relationships, your professional development. If someone ever challenges your business ownership, you want to be able to prove you built it through your own efforts." Again, this advice made sense regardless of my marital situation. But I started following it meticulously. Meanwhile, Sarah's behavior at home continued to deteriorate. The cooking incident had apparently been the beginning of a broader campaign to establish that I was not really part of her family unit. She stopped including me in conversations about household decisions. When the dishwasher broke in May, she researched replacements and scheduled installation without mentioning it to me. I came home to find workers installing a new appliance in my kitchen. "Why didn't you tell me the dishwasher was broken?" I asked. "It's my kitchen," Sarah replied. "I handle the kitchen appliances. It's our house, Sarah. We make major purchases together. You make your business decisions without asking me. I'll handle the household decisions." She stopped planning family activities that included me. When Emma's school had a father-daughter dance in May, Sarah encouraged Emma to ask her biological father, who lived in Phoenix and saw the kids twice a year. Emma was clearly uncomfortable with this suggestion and eventually asked if I could take her, but only after Sarah had made it clear that she didn't consider it appropriate for me to fill that role. Most telling of all, Sarah started talking about when the kids graduate and our future plans, as if those plans didn't include me. She would discuss Emma's college preparations and Jake's high school choices as decisions she would be making independently. She talked about possibly moving to be closer to her sister in California once Jake finished school, never asking how such a move might affect my business or whether I was interested in relocating. By June, I realized that Sarah had mentally ended our marriage. She was just waiting for the right time to make it official, probably after she figured out how to maximize her financial position in a divorce. What she didn't know was that I was conducting my own analysis of our situation. And the more I understood about our legal and financial reality, the more I realized that Sarah had made some significant miscalculations about her position. First, she had never contributed financially to the purchase of our house. I had bought it 2 years before we married, and while I'd renovated and improved it during our marriage, those improvements had been funded entirely through my business income. In Colorado, the house would likely be considered my separate property, not marital property subject to division. Second, my business had been established before our marriage and had grown through my professional efforts, not through any contributions Sarah had made. While she might be entitled to a portion of the business's increased value during our marriage, she wouldn't be entitled to ownership of the business itself. Third, Sarah's own financial situation was precarious. Her consulting work was inconsistent, she had no retirement savings of her own, and she had been gradually accumulating credit card debt over the past 2 years, debt that was in her name alone because I'd insisted on keeping our credit separate when we married. Most importantly, Sarah seemed to believe that the kids gave her leverage in a divorce settlement. But Emma and Jake weren't my biological children, and while I cared about them deeply, I had no legal obligation to support them after a divorce. Sarah would be facing single parenthood with inconsistent income and no guaranteed child support from me. In July, I had a conversation with Patricia Reeves that clarified my legal position. Patricia, hypothetically, if someone in my situation were to face divorce proceedings, what would the likely outcome be? She reviewed my file and gave me a clear assessment. Michael, based on what you've told me about your assets and your marriage, you'd be in a relatively strong position. The house is your separate property. Your business predates the marriage and reflects your individual efforts. You have no biological children requiring support. Your spouse has limited earning capacity and no significant separate assets. What would she likely be entitled to? Potentially a portion of your retirement account contributions made during the marriage, and possibly some claim to the increased value of your business during the marriage period. But we're probably talking about $40,000 to $60,000 in total settlement, not the hundreds of thousands she might be expecting. That conversation crystallized my thinking. Sarah apparently believed that divorcing me would leave her financially secure, that she'd get half the house, half the business, ongoing alimony, and continued support for her children. The reality was that divorcing me would leave her in a precarious financial position while I retained the majority of my assets and all of my earning capacity. But I wasn't ready to initiate divorce proceedings yet. I wanted to see if Sarah would recognize what she was throwing away and try to repair our relationship. I also wanted to ensure that when the marriage ended, it would be clearly her choice, not something I had forced. In August, I made one final attempt to address our relationship issues directly. Sarah, we need to talk about what's been happening between us. What do you mean? You've been treating me like a stranger in my own home for months. The cooking, the household decisions, the family activities, you're acting like I'm not your husband. She looked at me with the same cold expression I'd seen in the kitchen that night in March. Maybe that's because I don't feel like you're my husband anymore. What does that mean? It means you're just the guy who pays the bills, Michael. You're not really part of this family. There it was, stated plainly. After 8 years of marriage, 8 years of supporting her and her children, 8 years of building what I thought was a partnership, Sarah saw me as nothing more than a financial resource. If that's how you feel, Sarah, then maybe we should discuss what you want to do about our marriage. Maybe we should. That was the last conversation we had about our relationship. Over the next few weeks, Sarah began behaving like a woman who was planning her exit strategy. She started working more consistently, taking on consulting projects that had her out of the house frequently. She began talking to Emma and Jake about changes that might be coming, and being flexible about living situations. Most telling of all, she started researching divorce attorneys. I knew this because she was using our shared home computer and wasn't bothering to clear her browser history. She was looking at websites for family law firms, reading articles about divorce settlements in Colorado, and researching spousal support calculations. Sarah was planning to divorce me, but she was trying to time it strategically to maximize her financial advantage. She was waiting until she had more consulting income to demonstrate her earning capacity for alimony purposes. She was researching attorneys to find one who would be aggressive about going after my business assets. She was preparing to present herself as the abandoned wife who had sacrificed her career for her family and deserved substantial financial compensation. What she didn't realize was that I was aware of her research and her planning. And what she definitely didn't realize was that her strategy was based on fundamental misunderstandings about our legal situation. In September, I retained Patricia Reeves officially as my divorce attorney. I think my wife is planning to file for divorce, I told her. I want to be prepared. Do you want to file first, Michael? No. I want her to file. I want it to be clearly her decision to end the marriage. But I want to be ready to respond quickly and effectively when she does. Patricia prepared all the necessary paperwork for a responsive filing. We documented all my separate property claims, gathered evidence of my business's premarital establishment, and prepared a complete financial disclosure that would demonstrate the actual value of marital assets subject to division. We also prepared a strategic response to what we anticipated would be Sarah's settlement demands. Based on her research, we expected her to ask for half the house value, half the business value, substantial alimony, and continued support for her children. We prepared counteroffers that reflected the actual legal reality: no claim to the house, minimal claim to business assets, limited short-term alimony, and no child support obligation. I also made some practical preparations for single life. I opened individual bank accounts and began separating my finances from our joint accounts. I met with my business insurance agent to ensure my coverage would be adequate for a single person. I even started looking at smaller properties that would be more appropriate for someone living alone. By October, I was ready for whatever Sarah was planning. I had legal representation, financial clarity, and emotional acceptance of the end of our marriage. I was actually looking forward to the resolution, tired of living with someone who treated me with contempt and saw me only as a source of financial support. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday in late October. I wasn't surprised, I'd been expecting them for weeks. What did surprise me was the settlement demand that came with them. Sarah was asking for $400,000 as her share of the house value, $200,000 as her share of my business assets, $3,500 per month in spousal support for 5 years, and $1,200 per month in support for her children until they turned 18. She was essentially demanding over $600,000 in immediate payments plus $4,700 per month for the next 5 years. Her filing also included a request for temporary support during the divorce proceedings, asking the court to order me to continue paying all household expenses and provide her with $2,000 per month in additional support while the case was pending. Sarah had apparently convinced herself that she was entitled to half of everything I had built, plus ongoing support that would maintain her current lifestyle indefinitely. Her attorney had either given her unrealistic expectations or was planning to use aggressive tactics to pressure me into a settlement that bore no relationship to the legal reality. I called Patricia immediately. "They're asking for significantly more than they're entitled to," Patricia said after reviewing the filing. "This looks like an opening negotiation position designed to scare you into a quick settlement. How do we respond?" We file our response, present the actual financial reality, and let them know they've misunderstood the situation badly. Our response was comprehensive and devastating. We documented that the house was my separate property, not subject to division. We demonstrated that my business predates the marriage and that its growth reflected my individual professional efforts, not marital contributions. We showed that Sarah's earning capacity was significantly higher than she was claiming and that her need for spousal support was limited and temporary. Most importantly, we made it clear that I had no legal obligation to support children who weren't biologically mine and whom I hadn't legally adopted. The actual settlement offer we presented was stark. Sarah could have $45,000 as her share of retirement account contributions made during the marriage, plus $1,200 per month in temporary spousal support for 18 months while she established her independent earning capacity. Total value, approximately $66,600. We also requested that Sarah be responsible for all credit card debt she had accumulated in her own name, and that she relocate from the house within 60 days of the divorce finalization. Sarah's reaction to our response was explosive. She called me, screaming about the unfairness of the settlement and threatening to fight for years if necessary to get what she deserved. "You can't just throw me out with nothing, Michael. I gave up my career for this marriage." "Sarah, you never had a career to give up. You've been working sporadically as a consultant the entire time we've been married. I raised your children." "They're not my children, Sarah. They're your children. You made that very clear when you told me I wasn't really part of your family. I was just upset about dinner. You're destroying our family over one stupid comment." But it wasn't one stupid comment, and we both knew it. It was months of treating me like an unwelcome stranger, months of excluding me from family decisions, months of making it clear that she saw me as a financial resource rather than a partner. Sarah, you filed for divorce. You researched attorneys for months before you filed. You demanded $600,000 in settlement. You're the one who decided to end this marriage. The mediation process that followed was brutal for Sarah. Her attorney, James Mitchell, had apparently convinced her that she had a strong case for substantial assets and ongoing support. When faced with the legal reality of Colorado divorce law and the specifics of our situation, Mitchell had to explain to Sarah that her expectations were unrealistic. Patricia was methodical in presenting our case. She walked through the property law that established the house as my separate asset. She demonstrated the business valuation that showed minimal marital claim to my company's assets. She presented evidence of Sarah's actual earning capacity and her limited need for spousal support. Most devastatingly, she showed that Sarah's own actions and statements supported our position that she had never viewed me as a full partner in the marriage or as a legal parent to her children. Your client told my client, quote, "You married into this family and this is my family, not ours," Patricia told Mitchell during mediation. She consistently excluded him from family decisions and parenting discussions. She can't now claim that he has parental obligations to children she explicitly told him weren't his responsibility. After 6 hours of mediation, Mitchell asked for a private consultation with Sarah. When they returned, Sarah looked defeated. "My client is prepared to accept the settlement offer," Mitchell announced. Sarah would receive $45,000 from my retirement accounts, plus $1,200 per month for 18 months, a total of $66,600. She would be responsible for her own credit card debt, approximately $18,000. She would move out of the house within 60 days. The divorce would be final in 30 days after the waiting period. Sarah signed the agreement without looking at me. The house sold within 2 weeks of listing. I had purchased it for $320,000 12 years earlier and put about $80,000 into renovations over the years. It sold for $525,000, giving me a net proceeds of about $490,000 after selling costs. Sarah moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Aurora with Emma and Jake. Her rent was $1,800 per month, which consumed most of her temporary spousal support. She had to find more consistent work immediately to support herself and the kids. Meanwhile, I purchased a smaller but nicer townhome in Cherry Creek for $380,000. The mortgage payment was manageable, the location was closer to my business operations, and the property was in a better neighborhood with lower maintenance requirements. My business actually grew during the divorce process. The emotional stress of my failing marriage had been affecting my work performance more than I realized. Once I was free from the constant tension at home, I found myself more focused, more creative, and more motivated. I landed 3 major commercial projects in the 4 months following the divorce finalization, increasing my annual revenue to about $2.2 million. But the most satisfying part of the entire process was watching Sarah realize what she had actually given up. The $66,600 settlement lasted her about 8 months. The temporary spousal support ended after 18 months, as agreed. She was then facing single parenthood with 2 teenagers, inconsistent consulting income, and no financial support from me. Emma started her senior year of high school needing help with college applications and financial aid forms. Jake was entering high school and wanting to participate in expensive activities like traveling baseball. Sarah was dealing with all of this alone, with limited resources, while trying to rebuild her career and manage a household. 6 months after the divorce was final, Sarah called me. "Michael, I know things ended badly between us, but I'm struggling. The kids need things, and I'm having trouble keeping up with everything. What do you want me to do about that, Sarah? Could you help out sometimes?" Just with big expenses for the kids. You were their stepfather for 8 years. Sarah, you made it very clear that they were your children, not mine. You told me I wasn't really part of your family. You can't have it both ways. I was angry when I said those things. You know I didn't mean it. You meant it enough to file for divorce demanding $600,000 in settlement. You meant it enough to exclude me from family decisions for months. You meant it enough to treat me like a stranger in my own home. She started crying. I made a mistake, Michael. I realize that now. I threw away everything we had built together. Yes, you did. But that was your choice. Is there any way we could try again? Could we work on rebuilding our relationship? I was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the woman I had married, the partnership I thought we had built, and the cold dismissal I had received when that partnership was no longer convenient for her. Sarah, you looked at me and said coldly that you didn't cook for me, only for your kids. That I was a grown man who should figure it out. You spent months treating me with contempt. You filed for divorce demanding half of everything I had worked for. You can't undo those choices because the consequences turned out to be different than you expected. But we could start over. I understand now what I lost. You understand now what it costs to live independently and support 2 children on sporadic consulting income. That's not the same thing as understanding what you lost. I hung up. That was 18 months ago. Sarah has called 3 more times since then, each time when she was facing some financial crisis or major expense related to the kids. Each time, she suggested that we might be able to work things out, that she had learned from her mistakes, that she valued what we had built together. Each time, I reminded her that she was the one who decided I wasn't really part of her family. Emma graduated from high school last month. She received a partial scholarship to Colorado State University but will need to take out student loans to cover the remaining costs. Jake is struggling in high school, both academically and socially, and Sarah thinks he might benefit from counseling that she can't afford. Sarah's consulting work remains inconsistent. Some months she earns $4,000, other months she earns nothing. She's been working part-time at a marketing firm to generate more stable income, but the pay is modest and the work isn't challenging or fulfilling. Meanwhile, my life has improved dramatically. My business is thriving, generating over $2.3 million in annual revenue. I purchased a small office building that houses my company and provides rental income from other tenants. I'm dating Jennifer Walsh, a successful architect who has her own practice and her own financial independence. We collaborate on projects occasionally but maintain separate businesses and separate finances. Jennifer understands construction, appreciates entrepreneurship, and would never dream of telling me she doesn't cook for me. In fact, she's an excellent cook who enjoys preparing meals for people she cares about. But more importantly, she sees our relationship as a genuine partnership between equals, not as a financial arrangement where one person supports the other. Last month, Jennifer and I took a vacation to Italy. We stayed in beautiful hotels, ate at incredible restaurants, and explored cities I'd dreamed of visiting for years. The trip cost $8,000, which I paid without thinking about it because my financial position is secure and my business is successful. While we were in Rome, I received a text from Sarah asking if I could help with Jake's school fees because she was short on money. I didn't respond. I don't feel guilty about Sarah's financial struggles or her regrets about our marriage. She made deliberate choices based on what she thought would maximize her advantages. She treated me with contempt when she believed I would tolerate it indefinitely. She filed for divorce when she thought she could claim half of everything I had built. Her mistake was not understanding the legal reality of our situation. Her bigger mistake was not understanding that respect and partnership can't be turned on and off based on convenience. The woman who told me she didn't cook for me, that I should figure out my own dinner, is now figuring out how to support herself and 2 children on inconsistent income with no help from anyone. The woman who said I wasn't really part of her family is now dealing with family challenges alone. She gave up a partnership with a successful business owner, a beautiful home, financial security, and a stepfather who cared about her children. In exchange, she received $66,600, 18 months of temporary support, and the independence she claimed to want. The question she asks in every phone call is whether we could try again, whether I could forgive her mistakes, whether we could rebuild what we once had. The answer is simple: we never had what she thinks we had. She saw our marriage as an arrangement where I provided financial support in exchange for access to her family. I thought we had a genuine partnership. When she made it clear that her view was correct, the arrangement ended. I learned important lessons from my marriage to Sarah. Success can create relationships where people are more interested in your financial resources than in you as a person. It's crucial to distinguish between partners who contribute to your life and those who simply benefit from your achievements. I also learned that respect is fundamental to any successful relationship. Someone who can treat you with contempt when they think they have leverage will never be a reliable long-term partner. Most importantly, I learned that the right response to disrespect isn't argument or negotiation, it's consequences. Sarah's cold dismissal taught me that she didn't value our partnership. The divorce settlement taught her what that partnership was actually worth. Today, I'm building a new relationship based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine partnership. Jennifer and I cook together, make decisions together, and plan our futures together. Neither of us takes the other for granted, and neither of us would dream of treating the other with the contempt Sarah showed me. Sarah is learning what it means to figure things out on her own, something she told me to do 18 months ago. The difference is that I had the skills, resources, and determination to figure things out successfully. The game is over, and everyone got exactly what they chose. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and leave a comment where you are watching from.